Last week marked 1 year since I started making KSP content for you guys, so to celebrate, I asked you to submit questions on my Patreon for a special Q&A. So today, let's go through some of these questions and I'll answer them as best I can whilst I build and test out a space plane. This isn't specifically a tutorial or anything, but you're welcome to follow along with this build, and there will even be a craft file available on the Patreon. Now, because there were so many questions submitted, I unfortunately won't be able to answer all of them, but I've selected a few that were frequently asked or that I found particularly interesting. I'd also like to apologise in advance if I pronounce any of your names incorrectly here too. So, for our first question, Pietro Bryan asks, do you have any hope for KSP2 or some spiritual successor? And unfortunately, the answer is no for KSP2. From what I can tell, the game is completely dead in the water, with no hopes of it ever being a finished product. Frankly, my hope for KSP2 died a very long time ago, and I like to think that I've reached a state of acceptance at this point. But as for spiritual successors, there are of course some games that I've got my eye on. Kitten Space Agency is the big one. While I've not been able to test it out myself yet, all the footage that I've seen so far looks very promising, so I'll be keeping a very close eye on that. If you're interested, you can go and pick up a copy of the game right now and try it for yourself, but keep in mind that it is still very early in development. Now for our next question, AG the Guy asks, will you do an actually useful surface base in the future? And the answer is yes, I do have some plans in the works for this, and I'm currently testing out some designs that you might see in the upcoming series. The only real issue here is that I actually tend not to build surface bases really, much less actually useful ones, primarily just because I prefer space stations instead. Regardless, once I've ironed out some of the kinks, this is a series that I'll be releasing in the relatively near future. Next up, Sunloaf asks, how long have you been playing Kerbal Space Program for? Now, if I had to guess, I'd say I started playing around 10 years ago or so, roughly speaking. I picked up the game in early access, and I remember very shortly after getting the game that docking was added. Kerbal Space Program and its community was very different back then, and since then I've clocked in thousands of hours in the game. Across PC, console and pre-Steam releases, I can't even give you an exact number of the hours I've played, but I'd imagine it's somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 hours all in. But now our space plane is about done, and we're ready for takeoff. But before we take off, I want to very quickly thank everyone over on the Kerbal Physics Patreon, especially those who have asked questions for today's video. Thank you all very much for your support. Now when we take off, it takes a while to speed up, but thankfully it's able to get off the runway on our first try. For our next question, the Cosmic Pigeon asks, what is your favourite spacecraft that you've ever made in KSP, and how far can it go? Now this is a genuinely tough question, mostly because I've made so many unique ships over the years it would be impossible for me to even remember them all. But if I limit myself to the ones that I've done in the past year for the channel, a few come to mind. The first is the Actually Useful Space Station. While it's probably my favourite ship just because of what it represents, being my flagship series and all, it's a very capable craft too. With some clever piloting, I see no reason you couldn't put that station basically anywhere in the solar system. As for individual ships, I've been really enjoying the Starship replica that I made recently. It was incredibly difficult to build and the process took around 3 days, but the result is an extremely capable ship that's very well suited for exploring the entire solar system. The only place I've actually had difficulty landing on with it is Moho. Now you've probably noticed that we've been flying for quite a while, and we still aren't going particularly fast. Here, I'm just trying to burn fuel and slowly gain altitude until our engines reach max thrust, but when they do, we'll be hypersonic in no time, and we even lose a solar panel here due to the heating. Now Michael Rajnat asks, will you ever play Spaceflight Simulator? And the answer is absolutely yes. You might have even seen some Spaceflight Simulator content on the Patreon already, where I showed off an experimental method to calculate the mass and radius of the planet. I also have some plans to do some tutorials for SFS as well as some other Spaceflight Simulator style games in the relatively near future. Next up, Samuel asks, where did you get the name Kerbal Physics? Now this one's very simple. I enjoy Kerbal Space Program, I enjoy physics. I wanted to make videos in Kerbal Space Program and I wanted to make videos about physics, and thus Kerbal Physics was born. But now that we've managed to get this plane to orbit, there's still plenty of fuel to get it all the way out to Minmus, which is where we're going to head next and try out a landing. On a similar note, Sprout JR asks, what made you want to do KSP content? And I say this is similar to the last question, because it really does just boil down to the fact that I wanted to make videos specifically about physics, and KSP provides a unique way for me to achieve that. But I do think it goes much deeper than that. I believe that Kerbal Space Program is an incredibly powerful tool for learning physics in general, and I certainly wouldn't have been as interested or as motivated to study astrophysics if it wasn't for KSP. I've always liked the idea of KSP being used as a learning tool in physics classes, because it isn't just a game about sending little green people in spaceships to their demise, it's a genuinely powerful physics simulator, and it has the potential to help make complicated concepts in physics feel intuitive, understandable, and memorable, and I like to think that my videos help illustrate this point. I just want to quickly point out that it will be very difficult to land this plane here due to the lack of an atmosphere. We'll have to treat it like a normal lander and then flip it at the last second so that it lands on its wheels. Then we can start mining. Here I keep running out of power as I try to refuel the ship, so the next iteration of this plane is going to need some extra batteries, but we can work with this for now. Now that we've refueled, let's head to our next target, Eve. More specifically, we're going to land on Gilly. Now for the next question, I'm actually going to lump some of these together, since quite a few of you asked if I would make tutorials on how to get to other planets or moons, specifically Lathe and Eve. And the answer for all of these is of course yes. You might have already noticed that I have a recurring series showing how to plant a flag on many different planets and moons, and then safely return. My current plan is to do this for every planet and moon in the solar system, and I'm slowly working through them. While I can't say exactly when I'll have the full series finished, what I can tell you is that Eve is likely going to be the second to last planet on the list that I visit, but Lathe will likely come much sooner. However, for Lathe, you could consider trying out this ship that I'm currently flying right now, as it seems more than capable of getting there. Now that we've arrived at Gilly, let's come in for a soft landing. This should be much easier than landing on Minmus, due to the super low gravity here. Once we're done refueling, we can head back into orbit of Eve and plan our next landing, which will be on Juno. If you're enjoying this so far, let me know by liking the video, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Next, we have a more technical physics question from Samuel Sherman, who asks, how do you properly use nuclear engines so that they're really efficient? This is a question that deserves a video of its own, but I'll try to summarise it very briefly here. The nuclear engine works best on ships that are really heavy, with most of that mass coming from the fuel for the engine. A great example might be on asteroid redirect missions, where you have to carry around the huge mass of the asteroid, but around 80% of that mass can be converted to fuel. The reason it works well on heavier ships is because the engine itself is very heavy. I've talked a bit about the importance of engine mass before, but one of the ways to make a heavy engine worthwhile is by attaching it to a rocket that weighs significantly more than the engine itself. Now that we've arrived at Juno, I'm going to come in for an aerobraking manoeuvre to slow us down. Next up we have Damo13579, who asks, any plans for Kitten Space Agency content in the future? And the best I can say for this one right now is maybe, because I would absolutely love to make KSA content in the future. As I said earlier, everything I've seen from the devs and various other content creators looks incredibly promising, but it's hard for me to make any promises when I don't even have a computer capable of actually running it. But I do have some plans to change that fact in the near future. So maybe, we will have to see, but right now it's just not possible. You might have noticed that I've just lost the other solar panel, so we have to abort this landing as we'll have no way to refuel the ship. Thankfully, there's just enough fuel to get us back into orbit and back to Kerbin. But this also means that whenever we want to rotate the ship, we need to fire up the engines to charge the batteries, which is a real pain. And now for my most frequently asked question. Here's a few questions lumped together in regards to mods, which essentially amount to, will I ever make videos with mods? And the answer to this might genuinely surprise you. Not only is it yes, I'd say it has to be yes, given that I already have. You can go back through my video catalogue and find several videos showcasing several different mods, primarily MechJeb, Tweak Scale, and the Cat Ear Navball frame. Coincidentally, those 3 mods are the answer to the question of which mods are my favourite. As it happens though, one thing that I have in the works at the moment is an extensive mechjeb tutorial, which I'm currently researching for. But if you're interested in seeing a full list of mods that I like to use, feel free to check out this post on my Patreon, which details some of the most commonly used mods and my thoughts on them. Now that we're back at Kerbin, I'm going to use aerobraking again to slow us down. But it really isn't going to plan, with the ship spinning out of control and things starting to overheat and explode. But now, thankfully, the plane has just survived re-entry, so we can use the remainder of the fuel to fly back to the Space Center and come in for a landing, hopefully without losing anything else. Now for our penultimate question, Sean Andy Ramos asked, what YouTubers were your main inspiration? Now, there's many different people from many different niches that I could mention here, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to limit it to 2. The first is one that I think you would all be familiar with, and that's Scott Manley. This is a name that carries a lot of weight in the KSP community, so it's fairly easy to see why he's one of my biggest source of inspiration for my own content. Not only did his videos basically teach me how to play Kerbal Space Program in the first place, I very much like the way that he applies actual physics calculations to the game, which is one of the guiding principles behind how I play KSP myself and how I deliver my content. So if for some reason you enjoy the content I make and you haven't heard of Scott Manley, please consider checking out his channel and subscribing to him. While he doesn't make much KSP specific content these days, it's primarily focused on real world spaceflight and aviation, which is just really cool. Now, the other YouTuber I'd say is a big inspiration for my own content is actually one that's unrelated to KSP altogether, and it's Josh Strife Hayes. If you're unfamiliar with his content, he primarily makes videos on a variety of topics generally centered around MMO games. The way I actually found his channel was through one of his tutorials for old school RuneScape, so you might already see where I'm going with this. As it turned out, this wasn't an ordinary tutorial that I'd found. It was a goddamn masterpiece. In the space of around 30 minutes, I went from having zero knowledge about a certain boss fight to being completely confident and feeling fully prepared to complete it, and then went on to do so. I think it's genuinely rare to find tutorials that break down complex topics in a very simple way that don't oversimplify things, miss out important information, or just come across as patronizing. However, he manages to avoid all of this and consistently makes very high quality tutorials, which is of course what I would like to do for you whenever I make tutorial content for KSP. So if you're interested in MMO games in literally any capacity, I'd strongly suggest checking out Josh Strife Hayes and subscribing to his channel. Personally, I've been watching a lot of his live stream clips lately, and I'd recommend these too. He's a very wise creator who can genuinely help you grow as a person, or at least he's helped me in that respect. Now as we come in for a landing, I've saved the most important question for last. So for our final question, Meow asks, do you like cat girls? And the answer is no, obviously not. I fucking love them.